Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Huddle podcast. This is our 47th episode. We're almost at 50, which is insane. But LeeAnn is under the weather tonight, so Nate is going to help me fill in. Hey, Nate, how you feeling today, bud?
Pretty good, pretty good. Always fun to talk about the Steelers' schedule this time of year when there's not much going on. So always fun to hop on here and see what this Steelers' schedule is going to look like come September.
Exactly, and th- this this year the schedule announcement shows kind of felt like the Pro Bowl. Like we have no need for them anymore. It was officially an hour before the release shows. I had the complete schedules with all of the leagues for not just the Steelers, but all the other three family teams in my family, which are the Browns, the Texans, and the Dolphins. I had four teams complete schedules done. By the way, all 100% right, but done an hour before the release shows were done. So if you track the leaks like everything, you could figure it out. I had a little thing helping. So I don't know why that was there, but this is the kind of show that you want to tune into. This is the recap. Knee-jerk reactions are done. Everyone's had a chance to breathe, but we'll talk about all the different things. But I guess right off the bat, we'll show people here it is. If you have not heard, this is the schedule. For anyone who wants to set their TV lineup, we included the channels and all that kind of stuff. So Nate, we're gonna get into a lot of stuff, but we'll do our own quick knee jerk thing. When you saw this, what was the first game that stuck out that either you were like, "Oh, I wish that wasn't on there," or "I cannot wait to play that game"?
So, what I find interesting enough is the way the AFC North is scheduled this year. You have Bengals Browns week 3 and week 4, and then week 8 and week 10, which means you have the Ravens the week 15 and week 18. I thought that was very interesting because before week 15, you will have played 4 of your 6 divisional games, and they're back to back each time. And we know the AFC North can get pretty physical in any game. It doesn't matter who's playing, whether it's Steelers, Ravens, Browns, Bengals. Those games are pretty physical. So looking at that, there might be a chance that second half of the schedule might start off a little banged up. Hopefully everyone stays healthy. But I did see that and looked at the AFC North and say, that's kind of tough that both the Bengals and Browns are back to back, not just once, but twice, pending the bye week in there.
Exactly. And the bye week is actually what I was going to bring up is what stuck out to me because in my little prediction thing that I was doing, the second the Paris game came out, I think me and you were talking. I'm like, oh, there it goes. Bye. Week 8. Easy. Pencil in. And then they're like, you know what? We're going to give you 2 buys in a row. You're going to play the Browns at home, and then you're going to have a bye. So I am fully leaning in to that narrative that it's not a bye. We're getting 2 straight buys with the Browns at home, and I apologize to the members of my family that are Browns fans. So that stuck out. But I was more excited about the Ireland thing rather than this because I don't. For any Steeler fans who are considering traveling there, it's important to know the Saints are the home team. And what that means is you'll see Steeler fans around, but there will not be banners, there will not be music, it's going to be Saints all over the place. So for anybody who was curious about that, so did the schedule make you feel better or worse than you felt before it came out, or did it not change a thing?
I think I probably feel pretty good about it. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm like gung ho about it where I'm like, yeah, easy schedule, blah blah blah. I'm more like this isn't that bad. I still feel relatively that depending who the quarterback is. Now I know we'll go into this, but seems like Aaron Rodgers is going to be our quarterback, but we don't know 100%. It's still kind of in that phase of we don't know. It could just be in the city. We don't know, but I mean, it just depends who the quarterback is. If this is Aaron Rodgers, I feel quite good about that. And I feel like you can take anyone on, especially with a massively improved offense. So
Yeah.
I feel pretty good about it. I feel like both ends, you get 2 good coordinators in McCarthy and then Patrick Graham. So getting those 2 guys, especially if you can land Rodgers for one more year and land that, I feel great about the schedule.
I agree. And for anyone who doesn't know what we were alluding to, there's a very good chance Aaron Rodgers is going to be announced in the next day or two as the fact that he's back. But let's just say for some reason that doesn't happen. with this schedule, I think it's set up really well for this a chance that we might have two young quarterbacks or another ride with Mason year. Because the early part of the season, no matter how many times they go through it, I keep saying we should, if injuries and everything hold up, we should get through this fairly easily. And I don't say that lightly. I say that because of what the second half of the season looks like. So considering that, does this remind you of last season where it was like we better do well at the beginning because there's a buzzsaw waiting for us?
Well, realistically, it feels like the past 2 or 3 years, honestly, that has been a buzzsaw the second half of the year where you look at the first half, you say, okay, get through here. It's like 8-4, or like you get through the first 8 weeks, you're like, should be 4-2, whatever, like should have a relatively winning record, should be in contention. But then you look at the second half. I think of that one year where we played, I think it was like the Eagles, Ravens, Chiefs,
Yeah,
all in
that
a
was
row.
incredible. Yep.
And it was just one of those things where our team was obviously falling apart. And I was just like, that's just brutal. That's just
It
how it's been the past 2, 3 years between this new schedule and the past two, where you're just looking at the second half and you're like, wow, like think about it. Russ against the Bengals that one year, we thought, okay, we can get through this gauntlet. Then after that game, we said, where did Russ go? Because it just looked so awful. But it's just when you play a lot of good playoff teams and such like that in the second half of the year, your roster's already starting to fall apart. It's just like forget about it at this point. It don't matter. The first half was relatively manageable.
It, exactly. And as terms of manageable, well, I'm not just saying. I know you're not just saying that this is a better schedule for the Steelers just out of our asses. There are actual reasons for this that we'll go into, but some of the overarching reasons that I want to start with is even though we have an international game, we are one of the least traveled teams this year. That's important. As far as if number one was the most traveled team, we're ranked 27th. We only travel 14,000 miles total. And when you take Paris in for that, I think we have to take 2 steps sideways per game, is what that equates to. So, rested team is what I'm hearing. And I'm not used to that. I'm used to the NFL saying, do whatever you can to make sure the Steelers players never sleep. Just constantly awake from the moment the season begins to the end, and then we'll punch them in the face. That's how the NFL treats the Steelers when it comes to the schedule.
Like that
But
COVID year. Remember how nuts the COVID year was? We had, I think that Ravens
oh,
Steelers game was on a Wednesday.
they just kept pushing it back and back. Yeah, the amount of ways I feel like the NFL goes out of its way to say, okay, the Steelers need to take the brunt of this on the other teams. Oh, you'll be fine. So, other than that, Nate, what is another reason that you feel particularly good about the way this season could go based on what we know?
Well, before I get into my point, I think you talked about the
Yep.
least travel. I would not want to be the 49ers this year. Not only do they go to Melbourne week one, so throw that sleep schedule out the window, but then they got to go to Mexico City 10 weeks later. And so you got to
That
at least be thankful that you're not doing two of the 9 international games. You still got to do one. And luckily, you can do the Pittsburgh to Paris, which is a little bit easier than I mean, California is still not bad to get to Australia, but it's much more of a
yeah.
trek. But when I look at this, I feel like the opponents are scheduled at least in a point where you're like, okay, it's not every difficult team back to back to back. It's spread out enough to where you say, okay, like for example, I look at when we play the Ravens to end the year twice, you get that Panthers Titans kind of stretch where you can get 2 wins if need be. If you lose to the Ravens, the
Yeah.
week 15 matchup, you still get those 2 weeks to buffer, quote unquote. But I feel like throughout this that the schedule's pretty even. And I think that's why when you look at the schedule, you can say, hey, there's room, not room for error necessarily. You don't want to have room for error, but I do feel like the schedule is actually kind for that this year. That also too, I feel much better about the Thursday night game in Cleveland. No more Mike Tomlin. What are we doing against the Browns in Cleveland? Because that game every year would be on the schedule. You say, "We'll mark that down for a win," especially or loss, especially as of recently, where we look and we're like, "What is Mike Tomlin doing?" So I do
It,
feel like that's much better.
that is an excellent point. I am doing my very best to see the schedule and my reactions to it through the eyes of new coaching staff, new approach, because I want to have that reaction like, oh no, it's another game. We're not gonna. I have no idea how they might fall into the same pitfalls as the last coaching staff. But if there's anyone out there saying, oh no, the same old Steelers, no, the second you've said that, you've fallen into the pitfall. New Steelers, put post-its around, or so like memento, like write it on yourself. New
Especially
Steelers,
that
new
week
approach.
4. Especially week 4. We got to think
Thank you.
about that.
And actually, week 4 for 2 reasons. I love that you brought up week 4 because not only is it what kind of Steelers are we in terms of games that we normally would have gotten into with weirdness, such as the Cleveland game that had the tipped interception returned by Highsmith and all that weirdness, the insanity of it. But that Patriots Bengals early matchup, that's going to determine who we are early as a team, because I think the last couple seasons it's been, I want to say 3 or 4 straight games where it's like we should beat these teams. We should go in and we should. I can't say that about Patriots and Bengals. So we come out of that into the Browns on Thursday night and we are 2-1 or better. Automatically, everybody needs to say that's a huge win, because early Steelers feeling that good about themselves, that would be huge. To beat the Patriots is great in general, but to beat these Patriots, which by the way, I'm gonna say something, and I might eat a lot of crow for it later. I am not afraid of facing these Patriots. I genuinely am not. I feel like them getting to the Super Bowl was a very excellent team effort, but they kind of feel like the New York Giants, where it was a little more fluky than we're going to see them there like the Patriots used to be. So I am not worried. I feel like we're going to face a hung-over Patriots football team. Are you worried at all about that game, or are you the opposite of me?
Well, I will tell you this. Looking at the Patriots, let's just get this out the way now. There's potential for AJ Brown to land in New
Oh,
England. That has been a
you need to
huge
calm down.
rumor. That has been a huge rumor. I don't know if he'll go
Yes,
through. Who knows if Howie Roseman will say, we're going to keep you. Because think about it. You now have Mekhi Lemon with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. Maybe you can kind of sway A.J. Brown to say, hey, look at this. But if the Patriots were to land A.J. Brown, I'm more a little bit like, that is tough. You have Hunter Henry, who did do well against Pittsburgh last season. But now if you add an A.J. Brown,
that
I
actually
that's the
that
way I see it, and it's just one of those things where if you see those two guys, it's kind of like, oh, this could get scary. But I feel much better about our defense, knowing that it might be schemed up different. So I think that's one of those wild card games, depending on what happens.
that you know what? I don't think you meant to, but what a perfect segue that is, because let's just say that AJ Brown does end up there. We have a guy on defense that I would feel pretty comfortable handling that job of coverage. And you actually went into detail to see what matchups our defensive back, Joey Porter Jr., was going to be facing. And just hearing that A.J. Brown could be there, I want to bring this up. So Nate put this together. So right there, you have the possibility of AJ Brown in week 2. So when you were putting this together, these are the wide receivers that JPJ could possibly face coming up. Which one of these particular stood out as you're writing them down, where you almost dropped where your pen? You were like, "Oh no!" Or was there any that did that to you? Because if no one's caught up yet, JPJ is closing in on Ike Taylor territory when it comes to shutdown Steelers, because there's not a lot of shutdown Steeler corners in Steeler history. And so this is an excellent matchup list. So what are you thinking about this, Nate?
I will say, looking at the AFC North to start, I feel much better about Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. No, you have a Jamel Dean next to Joey Porter Jr. I think that's where they went wrong last year. It was kind of Joey Porter Jr. and then Darius Slay, I guess, who didn't really work out. There wasn't another guy beside him, but knowing Joey Porter Jr., I feel confident about that. But if there is somebody I'm a little bit skeptical, it's Nico Collins. Nico Collins is just one of those guys that if you hit him at a certain time, especially because he might get Tank Dell back. Now, if you remember Tank Dell, he was drafted had that
Yeah.
horrific injury against the Chiefs. I remember watching that game and being like,
Yep.
whoa. But if he comes back, I'm circling Nico Collins. You could, because Tank Dell, you might let go to work, sort of be like, let Tank Dell beat us. But if Tank Dell gets going and then JPJ has to face Nico Collins and Nico Collins is feeling good and CJ Stroud is feeling good, that's one of those matchups where I'm like, ooh, because I feel like thinking about what JPJ has done, I feel confident against Drake London. AJ
Yep.
Brown, I feel like he could match the physicality. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, I mean, he's really dropped his flags down. I remember that one year he just kept grabbing T. Higgins and getting penalized. It was a little
Yep.
grabby early in his early career. Jerry Jeudy doesn't strike fear in me. Alec Pierce, outside of him, it's just Tyler Warren and Jonathan Taylor. They don't have
Now,
a number two
out of
option after getting
out of
Michael Pittman.
curiosity, um, is the reason that you only have Jerry Judy on there and not their two fancy new rookies is because you expect the rookies to be covered by someone else, or is that because you're just not taking them seriously yet? I was just
I,
curious because
I just think
that's what stood out to me.
I just think with Jerry Jeudy, the way you look at it, it's one of those things where you're like, he's always kind of gone to work. I think when you look at the secondary the Steelers have, you'll have Sante Samuel, you'll have Jaquan Brisker, you'll have your guys in the secondary that can handle them. I just always feel like Jerry Judy's one of those guys where if you don't cover or forget about, I watched him at Alabama. He's one of those guys that if you do forget about, he might make you be like, ah. But it could change because if those rookies like Denzel Boston and Casey Concepcion early on are going crazy, then you might have to flip the matchup. But as of right now, some of this was just last year's kind of off the dome where I'm like, well, he did take on Jerry Jeudy at times last year and some seemed to be
Gotcha.
one of those matchups. I mean, I think the one I'm more interested in is like a Emeka Ibuka because Emeka is going to enter year
Mm.
2, and he's one of those guys that if you watched last year, it was like Baker Mayfield's kind of guy of like, yep, you're here. Luckily, this is the second half of the year. I think that Denver duo could be a little interesting because Denver now has, if you remember, Miami traded Jalen Waddle to the Denver Broncos, which makes that Cortland Sutton Jalen Waddle duo a little bit interesting come week 12.
That
And I
is
think that's one that you got to circle to be like, how are they going to do it? Is it going to be Jalen Waddle stretches the field, Cortland Sutton kind of moves the chains? It almost could be like that Keenan Allen, Mike Williams kind of duo that the Chargers have, where it's like one
mm.
stretches the field, one kind of underneath moves the chains type of guy. So we'll see how that duo is, and I think that'll be an interesting one come week 12.
I think so, and there. I think week 5 is going to be interesting because I think Alec Pierce is going to have an extra little bit on his shoulder, saying, "I didn't need Pittman. Look what I can do on my own," and Pittman's going to feel the same way. But Jalen Waddle, that dude's sneaky good. I think anybody who has forced to play second fiddle to a superstar receiver, which Waddle was forced to do with Hill, and still perform the way he did is remarkable. So that one, I think, worries me out of all of them because Cortland Sutton is just a bona fide number one receiver, but Jalen Waddle really wants a chance to show what he can do without Tyreek Hill there. He's very, very excited about that. Now, the Texans, the thing that I'm excited about that week is defensively, I think we're going to go into that. Mike McCarthy is just going to play them, the Texans loss that we took last year, and say, look, you guys did your job. Offense let us down. We can't do the same thing this year, and just make everyone upset and uncomfortable to the point where they go out and just don't make the same mistakes. And if that happens, I don't think it matters what receivers they have out there.
Yeah, I mean, also too, I'm not as worried about the Ravens. Yes, they have, Rashad Bateman, and then now they have Jacoby Lane and Elijah Surratt, but that's two unproven rookies, and somebody like Rashad Bateman, who's kind of up and down throughout the season, sometimes isn't healthy. But Zay Flowers only went off last year because if you go back and watch the film, Jalen Ramsey made not only one mistake, but two major mistakes of pulling himself up, reading too much into the quarterback, Lamar Jackson, which I understand you got to watch Lamar. But
Yeah.
if you think about that week 18 matchup, Zay Flowers only got those touchdowns because of Ramsey moving up a little bit, kind of sneaking up too much, And that's really what killed him. But I don't. Zay Flowers is good. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think he's one of those receivers that you got to be like, oh, he's so good. I have a respectful fear for him as like a fan where I'm like, don't let this guy go off. But it's not something where I say, yeah, he's a total game changer.
No, I agree. I think we made Zay Flowers look like a superstar level receiver for a game, and that showed more about where we were as a team. And honestly, I think any Steeler fan worth their salt who was watching that game afterwards, we were all incredibly excited that we won and all that stuff. But all of us sitting there were like, yeah, that team ain't winning the playoff game. Yeah, and there's just a feeling settling in that you can't get away with that kind of stuff later on. So you talked about Patrick Graham. Do you think that kind of stuff that we're talking about, which I don't know why it couldn't be fixed? It seemed like the last 3 to 5 years it was miscommunication, inability to be on the same page, people just not knowing plays. But do you think that's going to change? Because from what I've heard, at least Patrick Graham seems very confident.
Well, I think he brings a different demeanor when I think about Patrick Graham because there's no way he's going to sit there like Terrell Austin and be like kind of level headed. I think Patrick Graham is going to demand more from this defense of know your stuff. Because I'm going to give you an example. Let's look exactly at the Las Vegas Raiders. That offense sucks. It sucks. Like capital SUCKS sucks. And what did Patrick Graham do with that offense, especially Max Crosby? He made that unit look so good to the fact where you're like, well, maybe if the Raiders had an offense, they could win more games. Now let's take that to the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? So think about that, right? If you get somebody like a TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, and Nick Herbig, you're already in pass rush, like in a great spot. Yeah. Then you take that to the secondary where you got Jalen Ramsey, Brisker, JPJ, an influx of guys like that. I feel much better if I'm Patrick Graham, and I know I can instill in those guys of know your spots because I'll take you out. I ain't afraid to. I think in the Mike Tomlin era, there was times where you're like, I don't want to upset the veteran. Example, Jalen Ramsey. If he's not playing good, you don't want to be like, last year he was all you had at safety, but at the same time, it was like, you're not playing good. We should kind of take you out, or you're not knowing your assignments. And I think when you have a defensive coordinator who's going to kind of demand more out of his guys than the previous guy that you had, I think there should be optimism that the defense isn't going to have these continuous miscommunications where you're like, well, who is supposed to have this receiver? Who is supposed to have this tight end?
That's an excellent point. And I don't know if we're going to see it to the extent of, oh, suddenly TJ is going to move on a whim. But I do think it's going to be very similar to, I don't know if you, for anyone who hasn't seen the America's game for Mike Tomlin's first Super Bowl year, they talk about what it was like when Mike Tomlin first took over. And there was a little bit of whiplash because it was immediately made, this is Mike Tomlin's team doing things differently. I want that to be how Patrick Graham is, because Mike McCarthy is already doing it. He's doing exactly what Mike McCarthy wants to do as far as quarterback work, which I did not know exactly what it was going to be. I've never seen a quote-unquote quarterback whisper at work up close, which is what people apparently say Mike McCarthy is. And apparently a lot of it is really boring drills that you can't tell anything from a video. That's what it means, because that's what we saw from Terrell. But you were talking about the Steelers defense, and you decided that you were going to keep digging because Nate's a research monster. And the offenses that we are going to be playing, now these are based off how they finished 2025, correct?
Correct. So this was from Fox Sports from last year. Now, do keep in mind that you might see like the Colts were ninth last year. Yes, they had Daniel Jones and what they had, but I some of these numbers will change probably come matchup time, but it does give you a sense of this is what they did last year, and this is what you could potentially see coming into things.
Yeah, so right off the bat, I mean, it's football, never ever just go based off paper, or we would probably have a lot more Super Bowls in the Killer B era. But you look at the Patriots and Colts are the two that surprise. I mean, if you think our top three offensive matchups this year, it's Patriots, Colts, Broncos in that order. Just take that just by itself as an image. that's not a frightening image. Am I looking past something, or am I seeing it correctly? Because just based off those three teams alone, if that's the biggest offensive challenge our defense has as a whole, now I'm not saying it. Well, like you said, things are changed, but if I was, I would be thrilled if I was their defense.
I mean, if you look at the Colts, let's be honest, they are going to need Jonathan Taylor to have what he had last year, except times 10.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what, when you only have Alec Pierce and Tyler Warren, that kind of reminds me of when the Steelers had just DK. It allows you to kind of zone in on guys more often.
Yeah.
And they're not going to have Daniel Jones. I expect it to be Anthony Richardson, Riley Leonard,
Whew.
which, if that's the case, you could take that ninth and they'll probably be in the late 20s, maybe early 30s, depending how everything works out. Especially Anthony Richardson has not worked out. So, I mean, week 5 defensively, especially because it's the same situation. You're playing at home like you did last year. And when I look at that, I go, if I get a downgrade of a Colts offense, especially because you have one of their guys now, it makes me think that ninth is going to probably go down a lot. The Patriots, pending AJ, I put a pending AJ Brown there because if they get him, maybe they can stay around the top 3 offenses. But it depends.
Mhm.
They have Romeo Dobbs now, which he never tends to stay healthy. Depends if he's healthy by then. We don't know. And then the Falcons, you have that week 1 to go into a top 3 offense potentially. But the Broncos, I do think that is going to be a unit, but it all depends on how Bo Nix is moving. He did have that injury late or in the playoffs where he, I believe, with a leg injury. So you don't know which version of Bo Nix you're getting week 12. If he's really healthy, it's probably an offense that's going to be top 10. So looking at all three, maybe you're just looking at the Patriots and Broncos with the Colts kind of taking a back seat.
That's true. And for the both the Patriots and the Texans, I think both those games that relies on one thing for it to determine whether we're going to have to challenge them or whether it's going to be a breeze, and that's whether they fix their offensive line of protection issues. Because we should be able to go in with this defense and just cause havoc with both of those teams. Now the Patriots did spend a high draft pick on, I think it was Caleb Lumo. Lomo. I forget what the Texans did. Honestly, it's escaping me at the moment. But when it comes to that, I just imagine our pass rush and our front seven mainly when I'm thinking of these games. And I know I'm going to get ahead of myself so much, but there's more optimism than anything when I'm looking at this. Especially there. I mean, the Saints, the Bucks and Saints going into a bye week. I mean, going into the Browns is going to be just delightful.
I mean, if you look at the Browns, though, we'll touch on this in a little bit, but the way I look at it, Deshaun Watson or Shadur Sanders, sign me up. That's how I feel right now. Not two great quarterbacks, and they can talk about having one of the best defenses, but if you can't score the football, it doesn't matter if Miles Garrett broke a record. I could go on a whole rant about this because this is how I feel. Everyone loves Miles Garrett, but what outside of Miles Garrett, what have the Browns done? They have a great defensive unit, okay, but it's an offensive league now, and people don't understand that. And I think that's one thing you got to look at heading into the thing.
Well, I think the big thing with the Browns is the moment they decided Deshaun Watson was worth it to be their problem, they forfeited not just draft picks and not just money, but they forfeited their offensive future the moment that didn't work out. That's just and that's why they're while they can do whatever they want with their defense, there's this gaping hole on offense that you can't seem to fix because you spent a huge amount of resources on something that just it's not just that it just didn't work out. He's a criminal. Like, like to the worst part that it could work out. It's like between it's ridiculous the fact that they browned it up that much.
Well,
But
think about this with Watson, right?
yeah,
When he came back from everything and suspensions and everything, he did not look great.
no, he did not. He looked like he forgot how to play football a little bit. Genuinely. Like, I'm not joking. Like, it looked like he wasn't exactly sure. Oh, actually, no. It looked like there was a disconnect. Like, in his mind, I genuinely think he still understood what to do. His body said, no, I don't remember how to do this at all. And when that kind of disconnect, you got that. And it was, you're right. It really was rough. So I would say bring on Deshaun Watson. I might be one of the last people standing on this hill at the end of this, but I still think that if you give Shedeur Sanders even just a little bit of time, he's dangerous. So I don't want to see him. I want them to put all their faith in Deshaun Watson, all of it, every bit of it. So
I want to see Shadur again because he beat us with some of the stupidest passes, man. Some of those lofty passes where I was like, if you have a DB that's probably picked off, and I mean, Shador, yes, if you give him the right stuff, I do think he can be good. But like his throwing and the spiral on his ball, I'm like, doesn't scare me. It's very lofty.
it's a little bit like Tim Tebow with a little bit of a difference because the thing with Tebow is I think it is like the slow pitches in baseball where for just a fraction of a second it hypnotizes you. It's going so slow and so weird that you're like, well, that's not a real and then something's happening behind you. But it's the sneakiness. And yet again, I'm following into the old trends of the old Steelers way about the we never know what weirdness is going to cause us to lose this game. I don't know what the new Steelers are like, but it's the yeah. I still take Deshaun Watson.
Kyle
I will
Duggar
still
moment,
on him.
which still makes me be like, that should have been a pick. It's one of those things where it's like Shador might have a couple good throws, but it's so bad that I'm like, if you have an actual good safety back, there's a reason we didn't re-sign Kyle Duggar because you watch that play and you say, buddy, that should have been a pick. Would have changed the whole game too, because that was a touchdown to Harold Fanning. And if you take that play away, that game is very different entering the game at that end of the game red zone drive where Aaron Rodgers, I guess, decided MVS and him were just going to try to win it.
Yeah,
You probably don't end up doing that.
Staying in the same vein of who our defenses are going to face. For some reason, I still remember the good old days where the Steelers set records with how many consecutive games we did not allow teams to rush for more than 100 yards on us. And then we have the last little bit. So these are the possible running back matchups against our defense coming up in 2026. So I think maybe more than the wide receivers, because other than the game where we simply couldn't understand how to adjust to a slant with Jamar Chase, I'm not concerned about wide receivers decimating us. But when it comes to running backs, I am worried. So who worries you?
Well, I think Bijan, we did a good job stopping him. I think it was 2 years ago now in 2024, opening up on the road, the beginning of the Arthur Smith era. Yay. I'm glad that actually, yay then, but yay now that he's not here anymore.
I know,
But
right?
Bijan is always a threat. Not only is he a great running back, but he can also be a receiving threat. I also think I think if you focus on Jonathan Taylor, that's out the question. But this Bucky Irving, Kenneth Gainwell duo, I think could be a little scary because Bucky Irving's already a great running back. But you add in Kenneth Gainwell. Now we've seen what Kenneth Gainwell could do. Now, if he continues to improve, watch out. Because when he was running back one last year, you think about the doubling game where he just decided, I'm going to look fantastic, which he did. He looked great that game.
Yes,
but if you get that version of Kenneth Gainwell with an already good Bucky Irving, week 6 is going to just be scary altogether because you think about the Buccaneers. They have Emeka Buka, Chris Godwin. They have Jalen McMillan coming back. They have Tez Johnson. Like, they have all the receiving depth. They have now running back depth. And if Baker Mayfield bounces back, that's one of those offenses with the running back where it's like you're going to have to force yourself to choose what do you want to guard. But also, too, the Saints. I'm going to pronounce this right. It's not Travis Etienne anymore. It's Travis Etienne.
Travis Etienne. Yep.
Which still doesn't click in my mind. But that's a story for another day. But we talk about the gauntlet. that Saquon, J.K. Dobbins, R.J. Harvey, and then David Montgomery stretch, that probably will be our toughest stretch. Not that the first
Yeah,
half won't be, but the fact you have to face Saquon, the guy in the running back, top 3 running back is
yeah,
incredible. And then J.K. Dobbins, R.J. Harvey. Now, even if J.K. Dobbins isn't healthy, he seems to not be healthy throughout the season as much. But R.J. Harvey is an incredible talent. He came out of UCF. But
yeah.
David Montgomery, being a Texan, I don't know if Joe Mixon is still there. I don't know if we'll ever see Joe Mixon again because he still should have been there
Well,
last year, but never returned. But then after the Jaguars week, you get Derrick Henry. That stretch scares me alone. Is 4 out of 5 weeks you face top running backs or running backs that could cause havoc. Because Jameer Gibbs, David Montgomery, that duo still did the job. And Montgomery's a number one guy. There were games even when Gibbs didn't look good that Montgomery looked like that guy.
yeah, I can't. I was trying to see with Mixon was still. I can't see what's up. I know. I don't think his recovery is going well. From injury, so, but J.K. Dobbins, if he is even remotely healthy, he has run circles on us before. Just historically, when I see his name, I get very, very worried. But I'm curious: are you more concerned about facing Saquon Barkley once or Derrick Henry twice?
Probably Saquon Barkley once because you only get one chance to stop him, and if he has a day on you, good night, basically. But Derrick Henry, we always seem to do a good job on. The past
Yeah.
year or two, we've seen to find not a kryptonite because he still gets his done, but we've seen to find ways to slow him down. I mean, the one game I think it was when we played the Eagles, Ravens, and all that. Derrick Henry had a day because at that point we were beaten up. But when we're healthy, we tend to beat up Derrick Henry. I think about when Patrick Queen had his first debut against the Ravens, like he wanted to stop everything and did his job there. But I think the Steelers handled Derrick Henry very well, especially as of lately. But if you don't handle Saquon that game, that's only one game. Derrick Henry, you at least get another shot to stop him if he does have a game.
With Derrick Henry, I I think we have shut him down in the past, but I think the last 3 games he played against us have been pretty destructive, especially since there was that horrible, horrible playoff game where he just ran wild on us. So I hope we get to shut him down. But not just looking at him, that week 16, 17, interesting game because we have week 15 Derrick Henry, week 18 Derrick Henry. What about that week 16 and 17? That's the Titans and who else is that? That the Titans and the Panthers, right?
Correct.
So, what are you thinking about that matchup? Is that a respite, like play Derrick Henry, get beat up a little bit, have it easier for 2 weeks, or is that kind of hidden trap games there for us?
I mean, to me, I feel like I kind of put Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears, but one of those might be injured or probably won't be as good. There might be a chance Nick Singleton is playing. He was the running back drafted out of Penn State this past draft, so there's a chance he could be in there. But I still feel like those 2 games could be trap games running wise because Chuba Hubbard, when he is in his bag, he is a really good running back. And yes, he had to deal with Rico Dowdle, which Rico Dowdle, fantastic running back last year. There were just
Yes.
times where he just decided, I'm going to go for 150, even 200, because he just feels like it on a good day. But Chuba Hubbard gets so under the radar. He's one of those guys. Jonathan Brooks, I do think he's going to play, but we'll see if he makes it through the whole season. He was one of those guys that the Panthers invested in, but it probably will just be a Chuba Hubbard game. But he's one of those guys where I say, man, if he's really doing well that half of the season, there's a chance you could get a kind of trap. I do think not as easy, but I think week 16, as easy as they look, I do feel like there are sort of trap games in the middle of, especially where you look at it. Ravens, Panthers, Titans, Ravens. And in that sandwich, there could be a trap game or two.
That's true. Well, if everything's going the way I hope it's going, even if we lose the Ravens game, we should be 14-1 by that, or 13-1 by that point, so we can just rest everybody. I'm just. By the way, if we get to that point and we are 13-1, I am going to come back to this clip, and I am going to find a way to cash in on that. But is there anything you want to talk about as far as the defensive side before we switched over to offense for the remainder?
I feel like having a Derek Harmon year two, especially if he gets really good, I'm not even going to worry about these because when he was in the game last year, I couldn't tell you who was running the ball sometimes. Like obviously they were stars, but he just found ways to stomp it out. He's more important than fans think. And he's one of those guys that is so good. I love watching Derek Harmon. I think once Hayward goes, he's going to be one of those anchor guys because he is that good. And especially, I think Cam Hayward, if you're looking at where you are in your career, you're going to be fierce. You're going to say, I want one Super Bowl, and this might be the last chance. So Cam Hayward is still very good at his age. And if you get I think this is all going to be defensive line. If that defensive line, kind of looks at last year and say, wow, we got punched in the mouth a lot. And they respond and they start punching people in the mouth. This is going to look a whole lot different.
That's true. Now, what I'm about to say, it could easily be construed as what many people like to do, which is Tomlin hate. It is not. It's just a view of the new group that's come in. But I genuinely feel like in some way, maybe not verbatim, but in some way, Patrick Graham came in and probably to either other coaches or people around him said in some way, how did they not win more with this? Just because coming in as a defensive coordinator to what we have, I mean, who else has a pass rush rotation of of Watt, Highsmith, and Herbig, who's just ridiculous. Then you have the defensive line we have. The talent is there. It has to be confusing going in saying, yeah, why couldn't you succeed more with this? I don't understand. So I'm hoping that is the reaction because if it is, that to me is the sign of someone who's up for this job.
Because we put Keanu Benton in a stupid nose tackle, but he's actually a defensive end, more kind of like not a guy that you put up as a nose tackle. And that's how he's been used at times. Like, forget who put it out the other day, but when Keanu Benton was not lined up as a nose tackle and as like a defensive tackle DN, he was swim moving people and looking really good. And I go, how did nobody in the room as a DC or whatever and say, oh, we got to capitalize off of that. Instead, they try to think he's a nose tackle, which in reality, he's not a nose tackle. And that's one of the misuses on the defensive line. And I get you got to fill spots. You want to use your talent. But you got to use Keanu Benton in ways that make him look good, whether it's defensive tackle or DN, not a nose tackle. Now, I do think that could be Sebastian Day Joseph, the guy you brought in. I think maybe he could fill that spot. Keanu Benton bounces out. But I think that's been one of the main issues because it feels like when Keanu Benton's used right, oh, boy, he is having a day.
That's now what I'm hoping that when Mike McCarthy talks so much about versatility, which it should be up on the wall somewhere in the Steeler offices because they talk about it so much. I hope it's different than what we've seen, which is an ineffective usage of the ability to change where a player plays. Because I think there is some point where Steelers saw a player said, you know what? He'd be really good as a linebacker. Or he'd be really good as a nose tackle. Comes in, does not succeed as a nose tackle. Yet everyone there said, yeah, but what if? He'd be a really good nose tackle. Keep him there, see what happens. And it's like with moving the tackles around. Yeah, but what if? What if we moved him? Just what if? That needs to stop, and I'm hoping it has stopped because it got reckless. Because did you hear that when the Steelers were talking about drafting Aaron Donald all the way back when, they said, well, he'd be better as a stand-up guy? So
I'm glad Aaron Donald wasn't used that way because, boy, did he wreck the league.
Yep. There's certain guys and there's certain people where I don't know how good they ever could be because of our inability or lack of desire to develop players a certain way. Yet again, we won't delve too much into that, but I agree. Derek Harmon and the line, if used correctly, it should be genuinely impressive. I'm talking back to maybe days where we are holding people under 100 yards consistently. Because it used to be that way. It used to be really fun. Like streaks of entire seasons was really fun.
Now we can't
Um,
stop backup tackles, and we get ran for the most yards at Acrisure Stadium since whenever last season against the Bills, who
no,
ran the same play probably like, I don't know, 30 plus times. And we just were like, nah.
the first thing you do, come in. Let's not be predictable. There we go. 25% of our job is now done for us. The rest we can do. It seems simple. I understand at NFL level there are other complications to it, but it can't be too much more complicated than we should probably run a different play. I digress. But before we jump to offense, we talked about the Steelers being one of the least traveled teams in the league, and why that's a positive. Because I want to push back on these people who instantly want to say, NFL screwed over the Steelers. Look at what they can't believe they did all that. Most years, 100% agree with you. On board, absolutely. Not this season. Even with the bye not coming after the international game, I still think that it's fine. And here is an excellent reason. This is the top group of teams from this season that are going to be playing teams that made the playoff last season. Be glad we are not the Broncos and the Seahawks, who are playing 10 2025 postseason teams. With streaks of 5 games and 4 games against those teams. The Dolphins have a streak of 6 consecutive games, all against playoff teams from last year. You have to go to page 2 to find the Steelers. The Steelers only play 6 playoff teams from last year, and 4 of those are in a single consecutive streak in the second half of the year. That's a gift wrap. That's like it doesn't make up for everything, but it's a little bit of a schedule apology from the NFL. I'm taking it as that. There's no need to get unnecessarily angry about things that are not real. And this year, it is not real that we are screwed over, because there's certain things you base it off of. And just looking at this, I'm like, we easily would have been one of the top teams as far as facing playoff teams from the year before. And it's just simply not there. Not granted, the Browns got less and the Bengals too, but I'm into the Browns and the Bengals. Come on. So when I look at people who are saying that the Steelers just are not they got screwed again, I just people being angry for the sake of being angry.
Yeah, that usually happens in the Steelers nation sometimes. That once one person starts having a problem, everyone else follows suit. Now, I do got to ask you this defensively.
Yep.
Are you worried about the linebackers? Because I still feel worried about that. They didn't take one in the draft, and I wanted a Kyle Lewis, a Harold Perkins. I felt they could have taken one of those guys. Are you worried at all about the linebacking core? Do you feel like they need to get some depth, or do you think it's suitable with what they have?
If it was the same coaching staff and group around them, I would say this is a terrible plan. I cannot believe we did this. You prove you don't know how to use Patrick Queen. This is a new group. This is I cannot say anything until I see how it works out. And until I'm given a reason not to, I'm going to trust that the talent, because Patrick Queen is a very talented linebacker. Peyton Wilson is very good at what he does. We have excellent guys in this linebacking group, but I don't think we fully knew how to use them. And because of the lack of communication in the secondary that was going on, you had a lot of guys playing hero ball, where they were like, well, if you're not communicating, I'll take care of it, and just rushing headlong and it happens so often. And getting guys into positions they're supposed to be in, consistent communication, stability on defense takes away a player's need to go rogue, which happened way too many times. So whether it's stupid or not, I'm choosing to put my trust in this coaching staff until proven otherwise. Because right now, I haven't been given a reason other than they're not the old one, or they're not the people I want. I'm not going to throw a fit. It was the only reason I would have to be upset at the staff right now.
The only thing I look at is the Cole Holcomb thing. Maybe he could become better, but drafting a guy in this year's draft, maybe you feel a little bit better, a little bit younger at the linebacker. That's why I'm like, is Cole Holcomb going to be good this year? Like, I think there's more questions about that than the whole unit itself. How do you feel about Cole Holcomb? Because maybe he's the guy you're like, how are you going to perform second year post injury?
Other than him taking up a roster spot, which if you want to say that alone is too rich, then we're talking of 2 different places. I think it's low risk, high reward. I mean, we're not paying him a lot of money. We have been there throughout his rehab process. So if there's any team that knows about his readiness to play, it's us. And it's not a Ryan Shazier thing. We're not like keeping him around while he's rehabbing and then we are keeping around so we can get back to playing football. And I think the Steelers did look at guys to bring in. But I think every guy they were bringing, they're like, listen, if we're going to invest that kind of capital linebackers, we don't have it to invest this year. So let's see what Holcomb is. Let's see if Peyton Wilson takes that next step. Let's see what the guys we have now do. And if we have to invest a second round pick and a linebacker next year to make up for where Holcomb wasn't or where Queen wasn't, then we do it. But to me, we're not completely set at linebacker, but I feel comfortable just on paper. We have the talent. Why not give these guys a chance to prove they know how to use it? So
that makes sense.
Yeah. So, but as now you put together the offense, the defenses that we're going to be facing. For anybody who is a little confused, our offense will be facing these teams, and this is where they ranked defensively at the end of last year. Is this Fox as well?
Yeah, I use Fox
so
Sports for both.
Oh, just so we source correctly. I just wanted to make sure. So, just like we did on the other ones, right off the bat, that streak of teams in the second half of the season looks a lot nastier when you bring that defense into it. Because there's sometimes where defensive rankings are like, oh, well, yeah, I get it. But that Texans and Broncos, that's not a joke. Those are truly spectacular defenses to the point where it's frightening. And I am not looking forward to playing them. How do you feel about that? Does it make the stretch more daunting?
Well, you think about the Texans, they got a guy like Caden McDonald from Ohio State in the draft. We already think about that D line, which is just nasty. Like, like you look at I think they still have Sheldon Rankins, who's really good. Like he's still one of those dudes. Then you have Will Anderson, and the Texans are just one of those teams, especially in the secondary. You got Stingley, and that unit is just one of those under D'Amico Ryans where he's figured something out with his guys, and it's like watching one of those units where you go, this coach just knows how to utilize his guys. Like D'Amico Ryans, I wish we had him at one point because, like, I will tell you, D'Amico Ryans is probably one of my favorite coaches in the NFL, just because you know that he's going to not only want to win, but know how to use his guys, especially on the defensive end, where he's smart. But the Broncos are also a unit where you look at and you say, wow, we got to play these two in back to back. And it's one of those where hopefully Aaron Rodgers doesn't have a fractured wrist when we come to play the second half of the season. That played a major role last year, if you really think about it. But if he's fully healthy, maybe these don't seem as daunting. And if the protection on the line is slightly better, there's no way you can't win with this trio of receivers. I think that's going to play a bigger role because when you only have DK Metcalf and just a bunch of guys, not a bunch of, oh my gosh, these are dudes. It's different. You just look at DK and you're like, yeah, we'll take you out the game. We'll let Roman Wilson beat us. We'll let this guy. We'll let MVS beat us. We'll let Adam Thielen, who's going into retirement. It's like now when you look at the receiving core, I will say this. I do feel better about a Roman Wilson entering this year, especially if he's the fourth guy. I do feel like there is slight improvement. People forget that when he was on the field last year, he was actually good. And for some reason, we just thought, hey, we shouldn't use a guy who scored some touchdowns or
one second. Open. We have breaking news. LeeAnn just messaged and says, according to Adam Schefter, Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers have reached an agreement on a 1-year deal. No details, but it is official. So I was about to say, Adam Schefter, I was literally about to say, hey, let's talk about it from the two universe possibilities of quarterbacks. So we don't have to do that. So yes, I literally was. So it is done. It is done. Thank goodness gracious.
It's over. So no more is he going to be here. Hey, now that he's here, forget these rankings. Give me 12 wins, 13 wins, 13-1. It's happening. No, I'm
So
just
yeah,
kidding.
well, we are. Yeah, if anybody is interested in hearing the eventual, um, uh, the predictions that we have, then you have to return when LeeAnn is back. But for now, this is so. I was about to say, even though now we can just throw it to nothing, that going into this defensive lineup with unproven quarterbacks or Mason Rudolph would be incredibly daunting. Now we are just confirmed we have Aaron Rodgers back for another year. This is I was and this is where it's on topic for me because I'm about to say this is where he would come in handy the most. And I don't mean just on the field. I mean his ability to prepare for teams like this correctly. And I'm really hoping that the coaching staff and him have a better relation. Something didn't work the way it was supposed to because there were so many points where Aaron Rodgers felt beyond frustrated that he had to do more than he should have. And a lot of the downfall came from that. So now that we know, what is your? You seem very, very happy. So, what? Explain how you're feeling about the Aaron Rodgers thing, and then how it affects pretty much everything that we talked tonight.
Well, the way I look at it is that you know that not only Rodgers and McCarthy had that chemistry, but what they did together worked. It felt like those two kind of knew, like, this is what we do in this situation. Okay, this is what we need to do if this isn't going right. Felt like with Mike Tomlin, there were probably times where Rodgers is like, what the bleep are we doing? It probably felt like that to Aaron Rodgers because it felt like there were times they would zoom into him on like the CBS camera, and Aaron Rodgers is just sitting there with facial expressions, body language, where he's like, "What are we doing? Like, I didn't sign up for this, but now you put McCarthy into the picture. I wouldn't be surprised if Aaron Rodgers not only has freedom to move, say, hey, we'll do this. It felt like when Rodgers did that too. It felt like we were better, but knowing that Rodgers knows the system and that those two did a lot together, it makes me feel great on offense. But now you give him Michael Pittman and Jeremy Bernard, who I think Jeremy Bernard's going to be his best friend because he's very receiver friendly.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's going to have to be like, no, I wanted you in this spot. Like I watched a play breakdown with Ty Simpson, and it looked like Jeremy Bernard was, doing an in route or something like that, and he's seen his quarterback was in trouble, went out, they got a first down. Now I think you give Aaron Rodgers a guy like that, and I wouldn't be surprised if Aaron Rodgers kind of low key signed off on a guy like that, knowing what Jeremy Bernard provides. But it's one of those things where I look at it and you say, well, now you got actual weapons for Aaron Rodgers. And not just running wise, but receiving wise. I think Rodgers probably was, recovering, kind of taking a mental break. I think that's just how Aaron Rodgers works, which kind of sucks for all that because you just want to sign a contract. Hey, just sign this. We'll let you do whatever. But now I think he's seen what the Steelers did over the offseasons. And even if other teams are calling saying we'll give you more, he's like, I don't just have DK. I have Pittman. I have Bernard. I think Roman Wilson and him are going to work together. I think Roman Wilson, if I'm Roman Wilson, I sit there with Rodgers and I say, yeah, if I'm Roman Wilson, you get a second time around with Aaron Rodgers, stay after it. Ask him to stay after extra. Ask him, hey, what do I got to do? Because if you're somebody like Roman Wilson, your time is kind of ticking on the clock. Because if there's an A+ receiver next year that lands to the Steelers and they know they want to still fill out that room, who says they're not going to take him if Roman Wilson isn't doing that? So I feel like if you're Roman Wilson, you're probably the biggest winner out of this because now you get a second time to quote unquote redeem yourself, but also say, hey, Aaron, I know last season didn't work, but how could I get better? How could we be on the same page? But now, like looking at all those defensive rankings, yeah, but at the same time, when you look at how much this team has improved, especially now that Rodgers is here, I feel quite good about this team on both sides of the wall now. Now that everything's confirmed.
Yes, and just for the record, this was at 45 minutes ago. Relic confirmed through Sports Illustrated that Rodgers was, like we were talking about, he was seen at Cool Cones in Pittsburgh, and we know they'll be there. For anyone wondering, this was not just a coincidence. OTAs begin on Monday. So that means Aaron Rodgers wanted to be there from the moment that he could. And that is incredibly important for a team that had the kind of turnover that we had offensively. But I'm going to go back into my football watching history. And back when Peyton Manning was, I think, middle of his career, near the end of Tom Brady's time in New England, there was times when they also, like Rodgers last year, had no one to throw to really. The frustration that consumes a veteran quarterback when the guys around him don't know what they're doing. There was times when Tom Brady had to run over and move the guys himself into where they were going, then go back and snap them. So I'm eager to see if the pitfalls and the hero ball and the playing younger than he thinks he actually is that happened last year won't happen this year because he's not pushed to that point of frustration. But I also don't know about how good his relationship. I'm hoping his relationship with McCarthy is fine, and they put everything behind them because I know it ended rocky. So I'm hoping they just want to get together and do the thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things you're going to watch a relationship, but honestly, those two, you might have ended Rocky. It probably was Rogers like, yo, I'm getting old. I want to win a championship. They probably weren't seeing eye to eye, but at this point, you think about the Packers teams. He had Devontae near before Devontae left for the Raiders. But you got to think they had the whole Christian Watson thing where Rogers was like, "What are you doing, Christian Watson?" They drafted guys that didn't seem to line up with the style that Aaron Rodgers wanted to play. Because there were times where he'd throw a ball to Christian Watson and Watson's doing something else, and you could tell Rodgers was like, "We're supposed to be right here."
Yeah.
And when you don't have the guys you want, or at least when you think about Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams is an out of this world talent. Devontae Adams is one
Yeah.
of those guys that line him up against any DB, he's getting open and he's probably gonna have his. So when you lose that, and then Aaron Rodgers is learning with younger guys, but then also guys that aren't on the same page, it's like I don't want to be here anymore. Not that I can't work on it, but you're not lining us all up to be successful. So I think sometimes, just like in any relationship, you might just need space from somebody. And it sounds like they've had good conversations all off season, and maybe the relationship is repaired. And everyone loves to blow things out of proportion of the relationship ended rocky, this and that. It's like, you know what? Sometimes maybe they just need some time away from each other to be like, hey, and then realize like, okay, we know what we need to do now.
Yep. And there's so much optimism because I have no reason to doubt this particular version. Now, 3 games in, I could be like, "Yep, there we go. There's the doubt. There's what I was waiting for." But it could also go very well. I just, I'm not going to be one of those people. I'm never one of those people who just pitches a fit because I can, and especially about something I can't control. Like this happened. No matter how angry people get at this moment out there right now, Aaron Rodgers is not going to go, wait a second. I don't want to upset those people and then back out of it. That's not going to happen. But I'm hoping it goes better than it went last season. So, but as far as anything else, because this is not, while it is breaking news, it's more relief than anything. It's not now let's talk about all about what this means. Everybody on earth knew exactly what this meant. Exactly what this meant. We all were just waiting for one of two things. And if this wouldn't have happened by Monday, I genuinely don't know if it would have happened at all. Because OTAs would have started. So the fact that it happened, my goodness, it's just, and I think that's it. I don't think we have anybody doing a hold in. I don't think we have any contract disputes. We signed Boswell. I think we're going into this just focused on football. Am I incorrect?
No, I feel pretty good about that. I mean, I think it's awesome they still rewarded Boswell because he was still really good. Had some times last year where you were like, but he makes 59 yarders look like they're 10 yarders. Like it's incredible.
Yes.
Like the amount of 59 yarders though in a season where you're like, the announcers would be like, Boswell, it's a long shot. Sometimes I just gotta look at the announcers and be like, have you not watched Boswell enough? He knows that stadium so well. It's like when he missed that kick against the Browns that 1 year on Thursday Night Football from that distance. It was like, yeah, It just felt like a sign of the game where you're like, "Yep, this is about to go downhill," and then it
Yep.
snowed, and then it just
Yeah.
forget
But for
about that game.
anybody,
Hit Control Alt Delete on that game.
yeah, and there was actually more people than I expected. Were like, why did that? Like, too much. Mark Madden, of course, found another reason to be angry about something, and like, oh, too much money and all that. If you take Boswell out of the picture for the last couple of years, then we get what everyone was clamoring for, which is a different result than a non-losing season. We
Oh,
would
if we
have
didn't have
easily.
Boswell,
I
we
mean,
would be
the
terrible.
Falcons, the Falcons opener last year. Was it
2 years
last
ago.
year? 2 years ago? Oh, you're right. 2 years ago, we would have lost that one. The amount of games where he's done like 90% or 100% of our points. And I have gone through kickers who don't make their kicks. It is really rough, and there's plenty of those in the NFL. So I think people are reacting to the team as a whole, but Boswell is a reason that we stayed afloat like we probably did not deserve it many times.
I'll
So
give
I
you
am
one
pissed.
even better with Boswell. Last time we won a playoff game was off his leg against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Holy shit, you're right.
Yeah, at least
Wow, that
that's
book.
the last playoff game winning I can remember. We probably might have won after
Wow,
that, but the last
was
time I
that
remember an actual
2018?
yeah, I believe so.
Oh, that's gonna be 8 years ago this year. So we're going on. Yeah, but reset the clock. It is 0 years. This particular version of the Steelers has not played, so zero. It is back to the start. And now people want to waste their time thinking it's the exact same thing. They're not fully understanding what comprises the football team and how it moves forward.
Do you have
Um,
any winners or losers from the Aaron Rodgers signing where you say, "Well, this guy wins because of
I
that"?
still think Mason. I still think Mason's. We're going to now release or trade him. I think he is gone. I do not think you bring four quarterbacks into camp, and I think they understand that the fans would burn down part of the facility if they let Howard go anywhere. But Allard is here now too, so you have two young quarterbacks with a good deal of time invested in one and a good deal of value invested in the other. You brought Aaron Rodgers in. That's what you want. So I'll say, as long as you are able to keep those four, let them battle it out. You know, Aaron Rodgers is your starter. You know he is. He does not need the reps that everyone else does. I want to see those three battle out and Mason prove why he should be kept over those two. But in the end, he will be traded, or that's the. But the winner is every receiver on that team, because with the young guys, the receivers would have been bailing out someone, the tight ends would have been safety blankets, all that. Now it's guys who just get to be pass catchers. So a dynamic shifted with that.
How do you see the offensive line? Because I think this is now the conversation of last year's offensive line versus this year's potential. Is that you have Iannachor now on the right and Fatanu probably on the left. We'll see how that
Yeah,
goes because maybe Broderick's that swing tackle with
yeah.
with Darnell Washington. Maybe you can throw him in there as depth. Because there's no way, even if Broderick goes through camp, that you're going to be like, "Hey, buddy, go out there with that neck injury."
Oh no, he's probably going to be on short-term IR to start the season. I'm guessing. Like we'll keep him around, but I doubt he'll play any meaning. If he does play football, anything meaningful till week 6 or so at the earliest. And by then, if we are gelling and the group that we have goes, sorry, you are now a backup.
But here, you're true on that. Now, here's the thing I think about, right? Last year, the line, there would be times where it made Rodgers and maybe the offense as a whole just look terrible. Now, I think if you're a fan, you got to have some optimism that if this unit is going to be better than advertised than last year, Aaron Rodgers might be able to sling the rock a little bit better because you look at the talent he has around him. If he has a running game that holes are opening left and right with Jalen Warren, Rico Dowdle, now you have that to control the game because think about it. There might have been times where that line killed the time of possession. And how many times last year did we watch a game where it was like, time of possession, the Steelers are losing the time of possession, teams are smashing them in time of possession, and the Steelers have had only the ball for 15 minutes compared to another team's 36, but they're
Yeah.
still winning. So I think that's something to look at where you go, if you're the offensive line, you get better. Not only could you see a better protected Rodgers, but also could you control the tempo better?
I think the phrase for me going into this season is margin for error. The last few seasons we have had zero margin for error. It was go in, and if you have a penalty, that drive is done. If you have an incomplete pass, that drive is done. If you have a bad a quarter, that game is done. Just the we didn't have any room for mistakes, any room to be able to get ourselves back into it because we did not have the ability to get back into it. So it was stay at neutral or ahead constantly, or we will lose this game. I expect that to get bigger because every team in the NFL has their margin for error. How much can we afford to mess up before we don't have the firepower to get back into this? And the Steelers have been at zero, and I'm hoping it's increased a little bit. And that is a big part of Aaron Rodgers, not just coming back in general, because if Aaron Rodgers came back to the same group we had last year, both in roster and staff, I think it would have been a sideways, if not backwards move with who we've brought together, both in weapons and trench guys, and the growth that we're hopefully going to see out of our rookies from last year, this year, that margin for error, I think, just increased a bit. Maybe not much to improve otherwise, but I think we just went from not having one to at least having one.
Yeah, I think if the line improves a lot, I feel time of possession isn't going to be the thing the announcers continue to talk about. Felt like last year watching a game, that's all they talk about, where you're like, I know we're getting killed in time of possession. So you talk about margin for error, but I think also too, maybe you can flip the script and say, no, we control games. This team can't control the ball. And I think that's what we need to do to flip the script here if you're Pittsburgh, is teams, especially really good playoff teams, control the time of possession. They control what comes their way. They say on offense, we'll take a 8-minute drive. We'll take a
Yeah.
5-minute drive. And I think if the Steelers get the line better protected, the whole offense is gelling, maybe we'll get more of those 8-minute drives where you're winning 24-14, but teams are in the fourth quarter. And now that team only has 8 minutes to score, but then that defense is just feasting because you say, well, now this team has to turbo because they only have 8 minutes to score. And I think when you look at teams that are successful in the NFL, they can force teams into not just mistakes, but also force them to play out of their tempo.
That's 100% right. So while I did not expect there to be breaking news while we were on this, genuinely did not. But that coincidences happen for a reason. So before we wrap up, is there anything else that we haven't touched on that you want to touch on before we say bye to the wonderful people?
No, I think when you look at the defense, I think that list of running backs is going to be the matchup to watch this season, is because you're going to want to see how does this front seven combat this list of running backs, because there are a lot of good options here. You have somebody like a Trayvon Henderson entering year two that is going to become a really good running back. There were so many times it felt like the second half of the season where Trayvon Henderson just housed one, especially that Bills game later in the season. Trayvon Henderson made his name known. Chase Brown, if you can contain him, you're not going to be in the situation you were last year. I just think that if you can look at this list and say, okay, you past 3-4 years, running has been our problem. Let's put this list on a wall somewhere in the staffing room so that people know, yeah, we don't want all these top running backs running on us, because then we just look like a joke. So I think this is going to be the matchup right here on the screen of what the Steelers should focus on this offseason. Maybe putting Benton in the right position and putting your front seven in the right position to succeed. Because if not, all these guys don't, no matter what name is on here, even if you're Tony Pollard or Tajay Spears, you're going to look like you're Jim Brown or one of these elite running backs throughout NFL history.
Okay, well, a little wrinkle was just thrown in. It hasn't been fully reported yet, but Aaron Rodgers' 1-year deal is out of ESPN with the Steelers is reportedly worth up to $25 million.
I wonder if there's some bonuses thrown in there, because I think
There
last
better
year
be.
what they did with the contract was they had bonuses in there. I think it was about 20 million. I think it was 13 plus the other kind of stuff in there. But if he wants to get paid, this is the way I look at it, right? You got all your stuff figured out. If you
Um,
want to pay Aaron Rodgers that much, you're probably only getting him for this year, and then after that, you can say, "See you, take your 25 million
yeah.
and see
It
you."
is it
So,
is a 1 year deal worth up to 25. Adam Schefter said it's expected to include a base salary between 22 and 23 with few incentives. So they're actually going the opposite. They're just making it a, so I guess this is the going. I know that going a fit, like I said before, doesn't change anything, but that's more than I wanted to pay. But I understand the going rate for stuff. But from just what I've seen from the little few things I saw, there's probably going to have to be some restructuring to make the money happen the way we're looking. So right off the bat, a little bit of ripples from this. So I know there are people that could be reworked. I forget who they are. But that's 25. We'll see when it's actually signed and we get the actual things, then we can talk about that more. But before we go, I wanted to put you on the spot and do a fun little thing to finish. So we're going to do the running backs that we're going to face, and then the wide receivers we're going to face. Starting with the running backs, I want you to pick who is at the end of next season will turn out to be the most successful running backs against us and the least successful running back against us.
um, honestly, I think there's going to be a tie for best between week 6 and week 12. I think those are going to be the 2 weeks that I look at and go, golly, those are two duos that I look at, and we know what Kenneth Gainwell can do. We watched him last
Yeah.
year, and those are the two I look at and say if they're both healthy, those might even because think about it. Bijan's going to get his, Saquon's going to get his, Derrick Henry's going to get his. We know that. But if there's going to be backs where I look at and say, ooh, I don't want to see him, especially if they're on a good day, it's definitely week 6 and week 12 with Bucky Irvin, Kenneth Gainwell, and J.K. Dobbins, R.J. Harvey.
Okay. Now let's flip over and we'll go to these are the wide receivers. So who do you think is going to be the most successful wide receivers that we face, and who do you think JPJ is just going to shut down?
I think JPJ is going to shut down. This is tough. There's a lot of
Yeah,
good
I know,
receivers that I
right?
think he can
This
shut
one's
down.
harder than the other one, I think.
I feel like he can shut down Drake London. If I'm going to go through this list, honestly, I feel like
Yeah,
Drake London
we can go. Let's do it.
is capable. Drake London, I feel like he could slow down. AJ Brown, if he's a Patriot, I feel like he's really their only real option. So I think
Sure.
he could slow AJ Brown down. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, now that you have not only JPJ, but Jamel Dean and an actual cornerback room, you could probably slow him down. Um, Jerry Judy, I think you could slow him down. Alec Pierce, I really feel like you can slow down, even if he's paid and is on the thing of like, I don't need you, Michael Pittman. I can do it. Because who else is Anthony Richardson going to throw the ball to now?
Yeah, that's painful.
But if there's someone I think that could be the most successful of year, I do think it's Emeka Ibuka because he's just one of those guys that I look at and go, he is super talented. Like he knows how to separate, he knows how to find his spots. He's one of those next up and coming receivers. Ohio State University as of late is just pumping out wide receivers left and right.
Yeah.
Next year we'll hear about Jeremiah Smith, who is a ridiculous talent. But you go to Chris Olave, he never really scares me. Sometimes he's not even healthy. So that might turn into
Yeah.
Jordan Tyson at one point, which that's the case. Thank you. That's a rookie, as good as he is. But then the funny thing about Jordan Tyson is he hasn't stayed healthy in college. So if he's not
Oh,
there,
yep.
who cares about week 7? Because then it becomes a lot different. Jerry Judy, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, you still feel good.
Yep.
Devontae Smith, that's going to be a tough matchup. Devontae Smith
He's sneaky. I have a lot of respect for Devontae, honestly.
not only sneaky, he won the Heisman Trophy when he was at Alabama, putting up some of the most ridiculous stats you'll ever see. So him as an actual one is scary. But Jalen Waddle, Courtland Sutton, I think that's one of those duos too you might want to circle just in case. That's probably the third toughest duo you'll face all season. But Nico Collins, depending on the Tank Dell situation, I know I mentioned that earlier.
Yep.
If he comes back fully healthy, that might turn into a duo. Jacoby Myers, Brian Thomas, those guys feel manageable. Those don't feel like guys where you're like, well, they're super good. They're good, but they feel very clampable when you have a guy
Yes.
like JPJ. Zay Flowers, if you communicate, he's very easy to kind of
Yeah.
be physical with. Because let's think about it. That week 18, if Jalen Ramsey doesn't make those two mistakes, he doesn't have those two touchdowns and all those yards.
Exactly.
Panthers are an odd one because Ted McMillan is a really good receiver. He was
Yes,
really
it
good
is.
coming out of the draft. But Xavier Leggett, sometimes he's not healthy. So, and then they have Jalen Coker, who just seems to have a few games a year. If
And
anything,
what
I feel like that's going to be the guy to worry about in that Panthers game. But the rest of this,
is it still Bryce Young there? Or am I blanking?
no,
Still
Bryce
Bryce
Young
Young?
is still the quarterback there. He tends
Okay.
to fluctuate. There's times where Bryce Young looks really good, like because I believe he won the Heisman one year. There's times where he looks really good, and then there's other times where you're like, brother, what are you doing? So that
Yeah,
matchup will always be interesting. Cardinal Tate, Calvin Ridley, I think that's going to be interesting. Some of these duos or receivers I thought like, yeah, those are definitely the guys. But between week 16, week 17, there seems to be two guys on my mind that I think could sneakily attack the game. For the Panthers, I think Jalen Coker could make it be a sneaky receiver we forget about because he does have some games where if Xavier Leggett and McMillan aren't doing their thing, it seems like he's the third option where you're like, where the heck did this guy come from? But something I want to think about with the Titans is Wandale Robinson being their
okay.
third receiver there in Tennessee. I think makes that interesting as well. And maybe it isn't Calvin Ridley. Who knows? Calvin Ridley is old. Sometimes he doesn't stay healthy, so it might turn into a Carnell Tate Wandale Robinson game. But that's just how you see the receivers. And I do think these are going to be the guys that they put JPJ on. Sometimes you might
Yep.
switch sides of like play a little zone, or you say, "Hey, Dean, you're going to play this side, this one, and this one." Because I don't remember the last time they've allowed Joey Porter Jr. just follow a guy.
Yeah, it doesn't happen too often with that. But you brought up an excellent point that I think how this Steelers defense, especially early, performs against that third receiver is going to tell a lot about this defense because we struggled with nickel and all that. So whoever that guy, I need that third receiver to not be the kryptonite that they've been to us lately. Because for some reason, I just know in the last 3 years, when we play someone, I don't look at their top two receivers. I look at the guy who's cut two passes for a touchdown and 8 yards, and he is going to have a blowout game.
Like a Travis
It's just how
Fulgham.
it works. Yeah,
Remember
it's just
Travis Fulgham? That one game wonder he had against us?
that seems like most players that play against us. Like
Travis
just,
Fulgham. That was like I think that was 21, maybe 2020, where Travis Fulgham went for 100 something, and Chase Claypool had like a 4 touchdown game, 3 touchdowns.
Oh, that was fun.
Chase Claypool.
What happened? Didn't he just not be able to make the Packers?
Yeah, it was something like that. What happened to Chase Claypool, man?
But
did you see what
this?
Before I leave, too.
Yes.
You see what Deontay Johnson said? I didn't know if you've seen this, but it seems like
Deontay Johnson?
Yeah, he was recently on a podcast. He said that he kind of regrets that decision he made with the Ravens when he said, "I'm not going in." It was when Rashad Bateman went down. He goes, "Yeah, I probably should have went in," because it sounds like that's a moment he thinks about. Because since that moment, Deontay Johnson has not really been in the league. I think last year at some point he was with the Giants on the practice squad, but it feels like since that moment things haven't worked. I didn't know if you've seen that. It made me think of something where I was like,
I did not. Deontay Johnson was the perfect example where I don't like being right to a certain point about things, but that I consistently said while he was on the Steelers, this is an overachieving lower end wide receiver too. The fact that he is on our team when he is why we think of him as wide receiver one. Any other team, he is not. it was proven from on many different levels, but it did that. I was not that heartbroken when we lost him. I hope he finds his way back, but yeah, dude should have. And you don't do that. You don't. I mean, Anthony Richardson, Deontay, very least go in the game. Just very least go in the game. So, but with this, my last thing is I'm going to say a sneaky shutdown game. I think that week 17 against Cardinal Tate and Calvin Ridley, I think our defensive backs are going to feast and just shut them down. I don't know why. I feel like that's going to be the game where our defensive back will stand out the most. Just do. Yeah. So, any closing remarks about this? We have had schedule recaps. We have gone through all these different things, and we have Aaron Rodgers confirming for more money than I think he's worth. So, anything that you would like to close with before we go?
No, I mean, I just think with the way everything's setting up, it makes me excited for September. I'll probably watch the preseason like a sicko just to see how the quarterbacks go, but just watch the full 4 quarters because
a preseason without the Panthers is going to be weird because we played them in the regular season. We always played them in the preseason.
But get this one. Who do we face? The Packers and the Jets. Who's the quarterback of our team?
Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah, it's going to be set up. Well, Aaron, we have a lot of primetime games stuff, and Aaron Rodgers not coming back would have made the NFL very upset. So I have a feeling Goodell reached out to Rodgers like, hey, listen, are you coming back? We want to have a lot of games with you. So
once I seen that, I said, there's no way he doesn't sign soon because there's no way you give a team like the Steelers that many primetime games not knowing Aaron Rodgers is coming back, because if Drew Aller or Will Howard was the projected guy, they would have said, just take all the 1 p.m. games.
Yep. Exactly.
Which I would totally understand. Which would make my Sunday a lot easier because then I could just be done at 4:25 every day. Sunday.
It would make things much easier for those of us who have to actually try to follow the games. But Nate, thank you so much for jumping in and going from a featured guest to a full-on co-host for the night. I appreciate that, LeeAnn. Hope you're feeling better and appreciate the heads up on the Aaron Rodgers thing. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Riley, thank you for jumping in and being awesome in the chat. From Elsie and everyone here at the Steel City Huddle, thank you, and we will talk to you when the next thing occurs.
LeeAnn and Zac would like to thank you for tuning in to the Steel City Huddle podcast. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss a thing.